Welcome to Athens City Council. This evening we will be meeting in council committees. The meeting will be called to order by the City Council President, who will then pass discussion over to a respective committee. The chair of the committee will introduce the discussion topics and provide an overview of the issues at hand. If needed, members of the administration will offer brief statements to provide further context. We will then welcome input from the community. Any citizens who wish to speak will be asked to state their name and address, both verbally and on the sign and sheet located at the podium. Individuals will be given one opportunity to share their thoughts, and the committee chair will have the authority to limit each speaker to 3 minutes. Once all citizens have had the opportunity to speak within the 15-minute time period allotted for total public participation on each topic, the public comment portion will be closed. Council committee members will then continue their deliberations. There may be additional questions directed to the administration during this time. When the discussion on the topic concludes, the chair will indicate whether legislation will be introduced at the next regular session of council and move on to the next item on the agenda or adjourn the committee if their work is complete. The next committee chair will then call their committee to order, proceeding in the same manner as before. Once all committees have adjourned, City Council will conclude for the evening.
Good evening and welcome to Athens City Council. It is Monday, February 2nd, 2026. Tonight we have a double meeting of committee and regular session. We will be starting with committees and then moving on into a regular session. I'd like to welcome everybody and remind everyone in the public that they are welcome to participate in questions after each particular item on the agenda during committees, as well as at the end of the committee or the regular session during public input. And with that, we will move on to our first committee. Planning and Development, chaired by Member Swank and Members Isherwood, Thomas, and Almeida.
Okay, we have 3 items on the Planning and Development Committee meeting this evening, I'm sorry. Been in City Hall all day. The first one concerns a zoning recommendation from the Planning Commission relative to Hugh White Honda. Hugh White Honda is the car dealership out on Columbus Road, right before you get to 33. On the left there, they are enlarging their business to bring more business to town, and there is a zoning recommendation from the Planning Commission associated with that. Mr. Mayor, anything that you would like to add to that?
No, I think this is a great example of bringing properties into the corp limit for expansion and hopefully an expanded level of economic development, although we'll see how that plays out. But it is adding an asset to Hugh White down there on the off Columbus Road.
Okay, great. Members of the public, anyone have comment on this today? I'll read very quickly before we go to members of the committee. On January 21st, 2026, the Athens Planning Commission met to review case 2601. This was their first case of the year. The mayor and Andy Stone are both members of the Planning Commission. Hugh White Honda annexation recommended zoning. The Planning Commission voted 4-0 to recommend to the Athens City Council the approval of this case. They want us to approve the zoning of the annexed Hugh White Honda parcel as B3, Business 3 zone, consistent with its intended commercial use and adjoining properties. Comments from any members of the Planning and Development Committee?
I would just say that following the discussion of the planning commission, seems to be it's very thoroughly thought out, and it seems to be a positive move for the economic development of the city.
I would agree. Anyone? Yes, Member
Are we
Thomas?
having a public hearing on this? For
We don't
rezoning?
need to.
Don't need
On
to?
this. Oh, we do?
For annexation?
We
Yeah.
sure do.
Oh, annexation, my mistake. I'm sorry. I was thinking this liquor control thing. In a minute. Yes, we would.
Okay.
So 2 parts to this. Need a recommendation from a member of the committee that we have a hearing on this. And a second, please.
I recommend that.
Second?
Okay, all in favor of having a hearing on this? Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Clerk Walker, if you would schedule that. Looking at the calendar, this has to be 30 days out. March 16th is the third Monday of the month. Now, I will ask you, Clerk Walker, there's a good chance we would have a second hearing on that date. From your experience, is it okay to have 2 hearings on the same date?
Yes.
Okay. So you'll get that in the paper, publication of general circulation for March the 16th. Public hearing, anyone can come and weigh in on this. This will also go through the 3 reading process. Anything else on this, this item? Okay, the second one, 317 Board Dairy Lane zoning recommendation from the Planning Commission. This proposal has changed dramatically in the last 12 hours. Let me read what this is, and then we'll discuss it. Essentially, this became for the Planning Commission last week. It came as a communication, and because of the need for an expedited process on this, they moved it immediately to a case, voted unanimously on it. Essentially, if you go out Dairy Lane, past the Clem House, past the Dairy Barn, past the 317 offices, they would like to add housing in a zone that's currently zoned as E1, educational, and it would be rezoned to R3, multifamily. The reason it was expedited, they have a March 12th deadline to get this taken care of, which means tonight we would need to take it up in committee. We would need to have first reading. We would have to vote on a hearing. And the earliest we could have done that was March the 9th. Their deadline was March the 12th. We thought we were good. Well, as of today, the developer who was going to oversee this project said that they could not meet a February 5th deadline to get paperwork in order. Consequently, there is no longer a need for this expedited process. The mayor is either by email or phone spoken with the folks. I spoke with Surveya not 2 hours ago about it, and we also received a letter from David Mott, their attorney, that we do not need to rush this through. However, and I think the mayor will agree with me on this, I came away from the conversation that we still need to keep it moving, not on the same expedited schedule, but so we have this done in the next 2 months. There's $2 million worth of funding associated with this, and this would be housing for those who need it in a sober situation. The nice part is the Clem House and the 317 offices are right next door, highly supervised, and I think in all of the discussions we've had in the last 3 or 4 months about housing and housing for those with certain needs, supervision, it has been a very important part of that. So with all that said, I would throw it over to the mayor if he has anything to add to that, and then members of the community, and then a council for discussion.
Thank you, Councilmember Swank. You summed it up really well. There was an opportunity, as you had indicated, for the 317 board to apply for OFA funding that's specific to smaller units like they're hoping to develop down on their site. They're 3 acres plus. I did have a conversation with the director earlier today and basically stated, rather than, as they're continuing to explore capital to further build this. They already have a significant savings already established. But as they're looking to find more funding for this, knowing that the timeline was just too tight to go after the OFA funding, that they were just wanting to pause everything. I strongly encourage, since the Planning Commission was 100% in favor of this project, not to have council slow things down, but to go through the normal process of rezoning from educational area, which is what it's zoned right now because it was part of Ohio University's property, and soon to be transferred over to the new community authority with a carve-out of this 3+ acres for use by the 317 board. So, Councilmember Swank, I appreciate your words, and I would encourage council to continue with the process of the rezoning of this, so that when the 317 board does have the revenue available to do full phases, as opposed to doing phase 1 now and phase 2 later, that they're at least ready to go when they want to go and get the funding, especially if council so sees fit to rezone this from educational area to B or R3.
Thank you. Members of the community. Comments by members of the committee.
Again, I would just say it's interesting. I'm saddened to hear that, it sounded really great that we were asked to rush quickly with this because progress was being made. So it's a shame to hear that it slowed down, but I agree. I think this is a fantastic project, and the folks at the 317 board do such amazing work. And if we can help them enhance what they can do for folks in our community, I think that's really important. So I would definitely look to see this move at the regular pace going through committee and moving forward to the full council for approval.
Member Thomas?
I would say the same. I was excited to see this come out of Planning Commission and thought that the plan looked like a really nice plan, and the building is stunning. So, yeah, let's keep it going.
Yeah, I would be remiss if I didn't give much credit to the Planning Commission for seeing a true need here and moving this through. So in talking to Surveya at 371 board today, the timeline that we were looking at that she said would work for them and still allow us to do this would be to have first reading on this on March the 2nd, have the hearing on the 16th, where the 30-day period, and second reading, and then the third reading and a vote for the very first Monday in April. We could have first reading in February and all of that, but that would get us in a position, which I'm not a big fan of personally, and this is me speaking, of having a hearing and then having a vote on something the same day. I sometimes think that sends a message to the community, okay, we heard you, but we're going to vote. By having the hearing on the 16th and the final vote on the next available regular scheduled meeting, it gives us time in case there are things that come up from the community that are relevant and important things we should consider. So that was a timeline that worked for her, because I asked her, are you going to be hearing something in April? And she said, oh no, we wish we were hearing something in April. This could be months down the road. So that would be the suggested, after talking with Surveya from the 317 board, is the timeline for this. First reading March the 2nd, second reading and hearing on March 16th, and then the vote, because March is a bonus month for council. There are 5 Mondays. We get a Monday off. The first Monday in April, which would be April the 6th. Without hearing objection, could I have a motion that we follow that timeline and allow Clerk Walker to schedule the hearing for the 16th of March?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, so that's 2 hearings coming up on the 16th, if you could get into the paper. Okay, item 3 on our agenda tonight is a liquor permit for a Trex transfer. A Trex transfer is a transfer of a liquor permit from one entity to another, generally when a location such as Athens is at or above its current number of permitted liquor permits. The other part of it is it's supposed to be for economic development. For example, let's say someone wants to open a new restaurant, there is not a liquor permit available, they can find one in some other locale through the TREX process, have it transferred here, they can open up the business, which creates jobs, tax revenue, so on and so forth. So that's what we're considering tonight. The permit is for a transfer to 102 West Union Street, which is the Thai restaurant as you head down Union towards Cat's Corner there on the right. They recently changed names. Somebody help me out with the new name.
Siam Thai.
Siam Thai, okay. It was Thai Paradise for a while. Food good? All right. All right, so that's what we're considering this evening. So first we'll move to the administration for comment, then to the community, and then members of council.
Thank you, Councilmember Swank. I mean, this is a tool that we've used many times before. I've used it for several restaurants here in the city of Athens that currently do not hold a liquor permit. As you had indicated, it's for economic development. When it comes to restaurants, it also helps them with overall sales. There is a caveat under the Department of Commerce Liquor Control that a TREX, you have to demonstrate that 60% of your revenue that you're receiving with that TREX is still going to be for food. And so it is not a bar. It is not anything like that. Just solely a drinking establishment. It's part of the whole TREX process. And they're only permissible to municipalities that are showing population growth, which is really kind of interesting. For cities that are showing population decline, when a liquor permit comes available, because their population is going down, that goes into a pool that is the TREX permitting pool, and that can be D1s through D5s for an establishment, again, that is a restaurant, to be able to use that within an eligible municipality.
Thank you. Members of the community. Members of council, committee. Well, I have some questions about this one, and it has to do with the numbers. Part of the, if you look at the permit we received, part of this deals with Section E, information that may be used to determine if the transfer is an economic development project. Two numbers in particular stick out. One is property tax, and two is sales tax. On this form, they listed property tax of $8,000. According to the most recent county auditor's statement, there are 3 parcels involved here. It only generates $2,800 in tax revenue. So I guess when I get the other one, I'm going to come back to the mayor for guidance on this. They also talk about sales tax, incremental growth. $36,000 is what they list here. To do that with our tax rate in Athens County of 7.25%, they would have to generate an additional $496,000. Now, unless they're serving Chateau Briand 1982, they'd have to sell a whole lot of wine and beer to get to $496,000. But the other number, I guess there's 3, total number of jobs that will be created by the project. All we're talking about here is adding beer and wine to the menu. Will generate 8 more jobs. My son's an executive chef, teaches culinary arts in Austin, Texas. I ran these numbers by him, and he said, you don't need 8 more people to be serving beer and wine with meals. So I guess I'm going to come back to the mayor. As a council, and Clerk Walker too, please, as a council, we discussed this in the committee. We may or may not advance it for a vote if we vote up or down. But is there a way that we can get some clarity on how they came up with these numbers? I certainly don't want to discourage economic development in a restaurant that's been a good neighbor for many, many years under a different name from expanding. But these numbers, just particularly the property tax, were $6,000 off. So what process, if any, from your time on council and now as mayor, options do we have?
Well, Trex is rather interesting. As the mayor of the city of Athens, can authorize a Trex without it actually going before council, other than council being aware that a liquor permit has been established somewhere under the Trex process, which is rather interesting about the Trex unto itself. As long as the mayor says, this is a good economic plan, and let's take a step backwards from even that. With a Trex, for an establishment recognizing that, one, they too would like to experience growth unto themselves. The 8 employees doesn't necessarily mean they're going to hire on 8 bartenders or 8 just servers. It could be 8 more staff that they may desperately need. I'll just leave it there, so that they can expand their services for individuals. So some of it's going to be a server or 2 or 3, if I've been in there, I think maybe some of you have been in there as well, that, there is an area where they could have a small serving bar in there, or to bring it to people who are seated in there for seated dining or outside. It is within the DORA area as well. And so that economic development doesn't necessarily mean, is this economic development for the city of Athens, or is it economic development for the city of Athens / it's economic development for them, in order for them, in some cases, to actually stay in business. We've seen that before as well, where businesses are challenged. They're losing to others because someone wants to have an adult beverage with their meal, and therefore they might choose to go somewhere else that actually serves both food and beer, wine, spirits, whatever. And so you have to kind of think of it in that way. Also, I would contend that, in full disclosure, having been the doorman at Tony's back in the day for 5 years, it's true. Well before I got into city council or my position as the mayor, what their tax is, whether it's sales tax or property tax, and knowing, what revenue gets generated off of alcohol sales, whether it's beer, wine, or spirits in your establishment, it certainly helps. And it'll offset your costs for the taxes that you do pay as an establishment. So I always think about it in that way. But first and foremost, I think about it in terms of the competition that is out there in the food services industry when you're talking about restaurants in the world climate these days, that individuals, in a lot of cases, not everyone, but in a lot of cases, they're looking to go to an establishment where, yes, I want to get something to eat, and yes, I would love to have a drink to accompany whatever it is I'm eating. And it absolutely helps within that establishment's their own micro economic development and prosperity, and for the city of Athens as well, because there'll be 8 more jobs in the city of Athens. I don't know what those jobs what their salary or hourly rate is. I can guess, but I'm not going to. But it certainly helps at the end of the day. And we have people who are looking for employment, and 8 more jobs.
Okay, great, thank you. Members of the committee. For the benefit of our student attendees today, committee meetings are where we really have these discussions. And I won't say get into the weeds, but have a back and forth. And quite honest, Mr. Mayor, I had not thought about that, staying in business, because Member Thomas can probably attest this more than anybody, the casualty rate in the restaurant industry is not the greatest. And to be able to stay in business, 25 years like you have, is a real testament to that. But I had not thought of that, and I think that's a very good point. So that said, do I have a motion from a member of the committee to move this to the full body?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty. And that concludes planning and development for this evening.
Okay, thank you. We will move on next to transportation, and this will be chaired by Member Clodfelder, joined by Member Stazer, Member Isherwood, and Member Swank.
I'm not on that committee.
You're not on that committee. I have the old list.
Michael Wood is.
Michael Wood is. Remember Wood is on his way. He had some car issues, but he texted he's on his way. All right, well,
Thank you very much, President Pro Tem. The Transportation Committee has 3 items tonight. The first is an intergovernmental agreement for the maintenance and control of Theater Lane. For anyone who isn't sure, Theater Lane is one of the small streets that comes off of Columbus Road. If you're leaving town and Hugh White Honda is on your left, it's that little road that you turn into to go to Hugh White, but you go right, and it goes past the in-town body shop and goes out to Greenleaf Nursery. That's Theater Lane. And so for quite some time, Athens, the city of Athens has taken care of that, but Theater Lane has not officially been part of the city. So this is an agreement to make it official that the city will maintain Theater Lane and also bring it into the city of Athens. And if you allow me, I'm going to read a few whereases here to just sort of set the scene for this. Whereas Theater Lane is a road located outside of the corporation limit of the city of Athens, and whereas Athens Township has historically assumed control and maintenance of Theater Lane, and whereas all improved properties with frontage on Theater Lane upon annexation shall be within the corporation limit of the city of Athens, making it in the city's interest to control and maintain the roadway. And whereas both the city of Athens and Athens Township have from time to time performed maintenance on Theater Lane, and whereas Theater Lane is part of a larger parcel belonging to the Ohio Department of Transportation that was acquired around 1970 to construct the limited access interchange between US 33 and Columbus Road, making subdivision to split off Theater Lane administratively onerous. And whereas the parties desire to establish clear responsibilities regarding the control, maintenance, emergency services, and administration of Theater Lane upon annexation of the properties with frontage on Theater Lane, now, therefore, in consideration of the mutual covenants and agreements contained herein, the parties hereby agree as follows. And there are quite a few things they agree on. I won't read them all, but I'll read a couple of the key ones. The city of Athens shall maintain in perpetuity Theater Lane as if it were an Athens city street. Such maintenance shall include, but is not limited to, snow removal, pothole repair, resurfacing, signage, drainage, and any other maintenance typically performed on city streets. The City of Athens Police and Fire Emergency Services shall respond to incidents on Theater Lane as inside corporation responses, with the same priority and resources as would be allocated to incidents occurring within the city's corporation limits. Costs and expenses. The City of Athens shall bear all costs and expenses associated with the maintenance and administration of Theater Lane as set forth in this agreement. And the term and termination, again, this agreement will exist in perpetuity, much like any other Athens street does. So there we go. Can I have a motion to move that we will do this in the next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All right, and Mayor Patterson, would you like to add anything to that?
I do. Just to educate everyone who's here and anyone who's watching when it comes to limited access with US 33, as you indicated. I appreciate you brought that up. For those of you who drive down East State Street and you go past Bob Evans and you see the chain link fence in front of Bob Evans sitting in the grass, and then there's a chain link fence on the other side of the street, which I have often thought, why are they there? I've known for the past 14 years. It's there because that is ODOT public or limited access right of way. That's how the Ohio Department of Transportation, or DOT, just Department of Transportation, can delineate the fact that you cannot put a curb cut or entrance into or across that parcel because it is limited access under the federal highway systems. So this is very similar. We did discuss, should we just take this over in a different fashion? The answer to that is it's very, very difficult. It's very time consuming, given that we would like to properly maintain Theater Lane with, again, signage for businesses down there, because they're sometimes, in some cases, difficult to find because there isn't signage other than the rather large Days Inn sign that sticks up in the air. But that's one of many things that we'll be able to do, paving it, maintaining potholes and whatnot in that area. And creating basically a more improved road for access with police and fire if we have to go back there and deal with something. So this is a good move to do in perpetuity. That means we're going to be taking care of that henceforth and forevermore. But that's the responsible thing to do on this particular street.
Thank you. Any comments from the public? Okay, and we had a motion. Oh, yes, and committee members.
So I'm sure there's somebody out there wondering, why is it called Theater Lane? Years and years and years and years ago, that was a drive-in theater, and every night they had 2 movies. In the summertime, if you went, you often saw 3 movies. The third movie was called The Fog, because it's down in that lower area by the Hocking River, and invariably the fog would roll in and you didn't get to see the second half of the second movie because the fog was so dense. But that's why it's called Theater Lane. It was a drive-in theater. There were several of them on 33 all the way to Columbus.
Thank you, Member Swank. Any other committee members? Would any of the rest of you like to comment? Okay. Next item, the other 2 items for transportation are quicker. This is the city administration planning well in ahead this year on 2 issues related to parking. The first is that in the month of December 2026, there will be several dates on which it will be free to park in the city parking garage in an effort to encourage people to come and shop, do their holiday shopping at local businesses. So I will read these dates if you are interested. Friday, December 4th, Saturday, December 5th, Thursday, December 10th, Thursday, December 17th, Saturday, December 19th, and Thursday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, for the last-minute shoppers. And then, any questions about that? Administration, care to say anything? Public? Committee member Swank?
Yeah, it's good that we're doing this well in advance, but I'm wondering if we shouldn't put this off because there's no pressing reason to do it tonight or this week or this month. And the reason being, as you've all seen, we are redoing the parking garage over here, and what we're going to be redoing, it's going to be a kiosk system, automated and all of that, which we've not had before. We used to have an attendant over there, but now you put money in the meter. And I think it might be nice to see how that kiosk system works. And I'm thinking about it several scenarios. The first date here is Thursday, 12/4. Let's say I park in there on Wednesday, 12/3. And I said, you know what? I don't have to pay till I leave. I'm going to leave my car in until Friday the 5th. When I come out on the 5th, am I going to pay because it's a free day? Or am I just going to be able to drive out? So my point is, I guess I'd like to see how the system works so that we can make sure that we do this in the proper way, that one, we're not providing free parking for everybody, but on the other hand, not penalizing people who might not be aware of the thing. So I'm not familiar how the system's going to work, but it might be wise to consider that.
Mayor Patterson?
Yes, to address that, this is going to be a fully automated system, and therefore what we will be able to do is, if someone parked in there, you said on a Wednesday, and so they're under the fee structure of parking there on Wednesday, but they stayed until Saturday or stayed until whatever, it will still charge you with your ticket as you exit, for the hours in which you were there. It won't charge you for the free ones, but it'll charge you for the time that you were there. Because that holds true for people who are able to have the extended parking up on the upper levels. The same issue would hold true for them as well. So it'll be clocking, basically, it's going to timestamp it. Your ticket says you came in at Wednesday morning at 8 a.m. and for whatever reason, I'm sleeping at, I don't know, the new hotel uptown or something and spending the night through Saturday or whatever. And if Saturday is free, or the dates that Councilmember Clodfeller just indicated that are free, it'll suspend the clocking at that point in time, but you still have to pay to get out because you had a day prior that you were using that.
So for example, on this one, I think I'm following you. Let's say you come in on that Wednesday, the 3rd at 6 o'clock PM, and you exit the next day at whatever time. You're only going to be charged from 6 p.m. Wednesday to midnight Wednesday because the free kicks in at midnight for the day of Thursday.
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can put in whatever we want to
Okay.
for that gate to sit there and recognize, no, it's free from X to X. And so if you have a ticket that is already clocking prior to that, it's not going to sit there and clock and go, I'm sorry, you can't, you're going to get charged for what should have been free. It'll terminate when the system recognizes that we have gone free for an extended period of time like we do when it comes
So
to.
even on the free days, the thing's going to go up and down. So if you come in on a Thursday, you're going to get the ticket, go out, ticket goes in, and you're not going to get charged for that, if it's a free day.
Yeah, I mean, there's some other options that we have for that. You know, if, and this is where things are going to be a little bit interesting, where we can have the system just set to where at midnight the gate goes up and it's open in both directions. We have that capacity. I mean, that has to be the case because, let's be real, electromechanical things can have issues from time to time, and we don't want to have an issue to where that gate just isn't operational. We have the ability to manually have the gate being opened. That's not the plan at this point in time, but still, you have your ticket, and if you got in early or whatever before that free period of time, you're going to get a ticket, and you would use that ticket to exit as well, but you're going to have to pay for the time that you were already there. For when the clock starts, for when it's free, it could still be, you're getting your ticket, but that ticket's not being charged, and you just got to feed it into the machine because it's already reading that timestamp, on its mag strip. It's on the back of the paper, and just going, well, you were there during a free period, and the gate's going to go up, and away you go.
Okay, so that'll just be a programming issue then?
It will.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Do any members of the public care to comment on these days with free parking? All right, anyone else on the committee? Would anyone else on the committee care to make a statement? Okay, thank you. So, would someone like to move that this be presented at the next full city, nope, never.
Doesn't have to have an ordinance.
Okay, great. Thank you, Debbie. Clerk Walker, excuse me. And the last parking issue is, some of you may be ever so familiar with the fact that there are certain places in town where a parked car has to be moved every 24 hours. That is in an effort to keep things moving, provide more parking places, make sure no one's storing their car for months at a time. But every year, the city provides kind of a waiver for that when there are fewer people in town. So the 24-hour parking on the street in a continuous location in the neighborhoods is suspended from December 13th, 2026 to January 10th, 2027. So there'll be just under a month there when people won't have to move their cars every 24 hours near the end of the year, this year and the beginning of next. Would anyone, would the administration care to comment on that?
I don't have anything to add.
Okay, members of the public? All right, members of the committee? Okay, thank you. That concludes the Transportation Committee for the day.
Thank you, Member Clodfelder. We'll move next to City and Safety Services Committee, and that will be chaired by Member Isherwood and joined by Member Almeida, Member Swank, and Member Wood.
So we have two issues on our agenda tonight. The first is the adoption of a hazard mitigation plan. We are required to adopt an ordinance adopting the county's hazard mitigation plan. This is required by the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000. This plan was worked on by the county and also with the aid of city officials. Ohio EMA and FEMA have reviewed the proposed plan, which can be found online, and they've given it their approval. The administration is asking the council to adopt the plan through an ordinance, which I'm going to ask that we will forward to committee for passage later this evening. First, to see the administration. Do you have anything to add to the adoption of the hazard mitigation plan?
No, this is something, as you had indicated, that we have to approve every year or every period of time that this comes up for hazard mitigation.
Anyone from the public care to comment on the hazard mitigation plan?
Has anything changed since you guys
You
last?
have to come to the dais and state your name.
Apologies.
That's okay. Just say your name and your address, and then your question.
Yes, my name is Daniel Gray, 79 Grosvenor Street. And my question is there, I guess, has anything changed since the last time you guys discussed anything pertaining to the disaster mitigation plan?
That I would have to put to the mayor to answer.
You know, I think if anything has changed, it's just the coordination between all the local agencies that are part of that hazard mitigation plan, you know, because you involve the sheriff's department, you involve EMS, you involve EMA, you involve a number of different entities, and with communications and how we plan for hazards that we are just, I believe we're even better coordinated now than we were, say, 10 years ago. And so there'll be some updates, but these aren't going to be, you know, a massive overhaul of the plan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any members of the committee?
Yeah, it's not hazard, but what the mayor just said, we saw in full action just this weekend. We had a fire, or two fires, one particularly over on East State Street, where not only our fire department, but 4 of the outlying fire departments participated. And, you know, in the summertime, fire's bad. In the wintertime, when it's this cold, it's real bad. And it's that cooperation, not only mitigation things, but things like a fire, that it's very valuable to have that plan in place with the adjacent entities.
Clerk Walker, just check. Are we voting on this so that we will have it on the agenda later this evening?
Yes.
Yes, that's. So can I see, does anyone want to make a motion to approve the ordinance? Yes.
Comment, if I may.
Yeah, please.
Councilmember Swank, I'm glad you mentioned that, because yes, it's coordination with multiple fire departments, both professional fire departments and our volunteer fire departments in the local area, but it's also law enforcement coordination. It's also coordination with our street crews, believe it or not, to be able to get in, because with a lot of water going on the ground when it's very, very cold outside, ends up freezing, and that becomes a whole different layer of hazard mitigation as we look forward. So I'm glad you brought that up. Our firefighters, police department, and our street crews did an outstanding job of knocking down 2 significant house fires that occurred here, structure fires, I should say. There were residences on the same night. Sally Jo, thank you. On the same night, they were maxed, but it's all because of your plan. If you don't have a plan, good luck.
So can we get anyone want to make a motion to approve this for moving forward to full council?
So move.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, so that's the hazard mitigation plan. The next issue is conversation about the establishment of a streetlight utility for the city. This is a conversation that we started at a prior committee meeting. This is a proposal from the administration to try and cover the cost of the city streetlights, cost to the general fund of about $160,000. There is about 700 AEP-owned lights in the city, for which we are charged a flat fee, and about another 400 or so streetlights that the city owns itself, and we are charged for the electricity to those. The proposal would be to add a utility charge of $2.50 to households and businesses in the city, and that would raise approximately the $160,000 for the to cover that cost and to take pressure off the general fund. I don't have anything in particular at this moment to add. Does the city administration have any comment on this at this point?
I do not. I'm hoping that Councilmember Swank can add to the narrative here with any creative solutions that you may have unearthed with the Northeast Ohio Public Energy Council.
Before we go to Council Magnus, does anyone from the public want to address this issue?
Hello, my name is Aaron Thomas, Avon Place, Athens, Ohio. I tried to come up here a couple weeks ago, but couldn't get in. But I want to address this from the previous council about the potential $2.50 a month hike. Now, I don't want to be a cheap person when it comes to $2.50 a month, but it is $30 a year. And right now, on top of everything else, with the possible 0.2% city income tax is going to be on, hopefully on the ballot in November, on top of the tax increase from a couple years ago, on top of 6 levies getting passed 2 years ago and maybe 3 more this year. It's kind of stretching the potential money in the city of Athens. And just, I won't hold up too much, but just for the people here, the medium income in Athens is under $50,000. So people, don't understand, this is one of the poorest areas in the state of Ohio. So when you look at somebody who's making $50,000 or someone's on fixed income in this town, 40% of the residents are retired, are on fixed income. So it may be $30 here, but then it's another $100 in trash, and then you got another $100 in the water, and then you got a $1,500 increase if 6 more levies pass. So I think we need to find some other ways to come up with the money besides taxing anymore in this area. I mean, it's only $30, but for some people in my neighborhood that's on a fixed income, $30 is a lot of money. And if you've been to the grocery store, I spent $30 on 2 gallons of orange juice and a pound of bacon. So it adds up real quick. So I just want to see if we can find other ways to cover that $160,000 in electric and some other fund besides throwing another tax on the city of Athens.
Hello, my name is Holden Hodges, 366 Richland Avenue, Athens. So I'm in the second year of my Master's of Social Work here at OU, and so personally, my classmates, my clients, and my friends have all definitely been affected by some of the financial issues that were being described. And I think that this is something where it's the smallest possible example, $30 $30 a year, but having it be a flat tax on everyone means that inherently it's going to be a regressive tax rather than a progressive tax. So I think that if a new tax is going to be levied, in general, the ongoing philosophy of the city should be that it should be a progressive tax. It should be something that affects people based on how much they're able to pay instead of a flat rate, because even if it is a small thing, like he was saying, they add up. And therefore, I think that we need to take a progressive taxation strategy so that we aren't unduly stretching people who can't pay. And, if other people have more money to pay, then it makes more sense to have them cover it.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? No, and I should say we have discussed in previous committee meetings options about potentially offsetting the cost for people on fixed incomes, or possibly even lowering the rate for residences and perhaps potentially increasing for business. We didn't come to any conclusions on that at this point. This is just in committee. We're not voting to approve the creation of this utility. We're still very much in the conversation point. And at that point, I'd hand it over. Any other members of the committee? Alan, do you have members?
Yeah, sure do. The mayor mentioned NOPEC, and NOPEC is the Northern Ohio Public Energy Council. They are the aggregation company that provides gas for residents in the city of Athens. They also have an electric side, but most recently in 2025, they received approval from the PUCO, the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, to enter into the C&I area, C, commercial and industrial, and cities, municipalities, and schools fall into that. So they can provide us with the electricity. I have contacted the city administration, Andrew Chickey and Andy Stone, to provide some information. I did that between our last two meetings. We need some information in terms of how much electricity we use, what our rate is, any contracts we may be involved in, so on and so forth. As the mayor said, that office has been swamped. As soon as I get that information, I'm hoping to get it this week. I will then forward that to NOPEC. They will shop it around, and hopefully through that we can find electricity at another rate, at a much better rate. Secondly, and Member Isher would add to this or correct me if I'm wrong, at next week's council meeting, we are going to have a presentation from a gentleman who is going to be talking to us about possibly buying all of these AEP poles, which might further reduce it. So my suggestion would be at this point in time, and hearing what Aaron Thomas and Holden said, and taking that into consideration, my thought would be, let's get the numbers from the city administration here in the next week or so. I will get those immediately to NOPEC. Let's see what they come up with. Let's listen to this gentleman next week who's going to make the presentation. And then on the 28th, which would be the next scheduled, or 28th, I'm sorry, the 23rd, which would be the next scheduled committee meeting, bring this back for a thorough discussion with much more information at that point in time.
Question to the administration, is that timeline problematic for your views on this, or is that?
Absolutely not. No.
Any other members of the committee want to? Member Wood?
Yeah. I get why the administration is doing this, is to loosen up things on the general fund. I think we do have to do something there. And I think that we need creative solutions in that regard. However, I very much agree with what Aaron said and everyone else, and gotten a couple of notes about it, a couple of emails noting, one, that a lot of the lights are out frequently anyway, which is sort of an unfortunate situation because we don't really control them. We don't have a lot of control over or responsiveness from our utility, which might improve with the new situation. Some folks mentioned solar. Maybe we should have some sort of accountability to wire in something positive there. And finally, I think my other real nagging issue here is that there's nothing that says that it stays at $2. It'll inevitably go up, right? And people have even less say over it. And I think that's my real, every utility ever that has, had a privatization thing has found a way to jack up the cost, right? So I'm worried that it's $3 now, $30 now, and then in 3 years it's 60, right? Because we don't have any sort of cap or any sort of anything written, to my knowledge, in it that says it could only increase by 5%, or whatever. So because it's not ours, it's theirs, right? And so I think that's my those are my real heartburn with it. Sensitive to the fact that, as Andy Stone said, every time you come up with a good idea, somebody says no. I respect that a lot, but I still have the same heartburn at this point.
Well, it feels like we are, I think the plan outlined by Member Swank to wait for the presentation, more information next week, wait till we hear from NOPEC, and we'll have a better sense of what the potential cost could be. Maybe it's less than 160,000, and then the administration can, you want to add something?
I do. I truly appreciate this conversation about this particular issue, especially from all of you. Councilmember Wood, and I'm going to call out a friend who's in here today, Sally Jo Wiley, because you're the one who said solar. I don't disagree with you. And I also want to mention, our former state representative, Mary Abel, when you brought that up at a previous meeting, that this is more in alignment with another reason to reduce our costs on our street lights and other things, that this could fall in line with our ask of the population to vote for a 0.2% income tax increase. Because along with that, because you mentioned it, Councilmember Isherwood, that the city, AEP owns 700 lights. Those lights are LED. But those, when we asked them to transition from sodium vapor lamps, which are extremely energy consuming lamps, to LED, which we all recognize are less, are way more efficient, cost less. There was a rider on that, well, since we replaced all your street lights with LED lights, there's an upcharge that you're going to experience, which is rather interesting. But we felt that was being responsible to go to LED as opposed to sodium vapor. We do have 400 street lights that we own, the city owns. They're on their own circuits. So there is a conversation, and this, at the end of the day, could mean we're paying less because we're not paying electricity for those circuits if we were to put a solar microgrid associated with those. Yes, there's upfront cost to do that. However, the long-range plan for something like that absolutely mitigates that upfront cost to do a microgrid on our circuits, on a circuit. Maybe we test it on one, Richland Avenue circuit. We own all those street lights up and down Richland Avenue up to Canterbury with those decorative lamps. If we were to put a solar array with a microgrid, just for those of you who are here, is a battery. It's a large battery system that is collecting from the sun during the day, powering those lamps at night. If you think about it, that's a one-time upfront cost to put that in place, but the savings, because we're no longer paying AEP anymore for that circuit, which is for 25 years plus. That's based on the average life of a solar array panel. That's even getting better these days. So I'm not going to belabor this, but I see that there's other ways to approach this. There is going to be Tanko coming here, I believe, next Monday night to talk about another way in which we can master our own street lights for all the street lights in the city of Athens. And it certainly doesn't mitigate, since we don't have a microgrid for any of our circuits, it certainly doesn't mitigate the pricing challenges that we're going to see with electricity moving forward in time. The highest cost for your electricity transmission, by the way, good to know, isn't necessarily generation. Whatever it is that's making that energy, it's the transmission that costs a whole lot of money. And that's unfortunate too. While AEP has done a good job, of armoring our circuits that come into the city of Athens, the entire grid, still has a lot of work to be done on it to strengthen that grid to where we have clean, reliable energy getting to where it needs to go. But this is one of the ways where we can sit there. If we did something like this on our own circuits, we no longer are paying that AEP bill, and now that's revenue that we had to budget for, and I can allocate into something else. So there's savings to be had. If you think about reallocation, it's like your own budgets. That all of a sudden you don't have a big bill anymore. Wow, what am I going to do with that money that I was having to pay that bill with? I can put it somewhere else, to something else. The city functions, primarily the same way. Sorry, enough said.
Just a quick question. If we were to do this, could we write into, or to address Member Wood's concerns, could we limit the rate? Could we write that into an ordinance that created this, that to limit the rate?
Electricity?
No, for the utility charge that's requested at $2.50. Would that defeat the purpose of having it in the first place? Member Swank.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is not a position one way or another on this.
Yeah, neither from my.
Every year, we vote on whether or not to increase utility rates, water,
Yeah.
sewer, the stormwater cap. So this would stay at 250, assuming, just for the sake of the example, say we did it at 250. It would stay at 250 until this council either abolishes it, reduces it, or increases it. The utility company would have no say over this $2.50. This would be a council-imposed $2.50 a month tax.
Okay, well, I think we will stick with the plan outlined by Member Swank, and we will address this issue again in the future. Anyone want to oppose that? No? Okay, that ends City Safety Services.
All right, thank you. Moving on, we'll move to Finance and Personnel. Chaired by myself and joined by members Clodfelder, Stazer, and Wood. All right. We've got several items on our list today. A few of these are standard ones that we do every beginning of the year, and a couple are going to be new that we've not done. To start off, we have a resolution for a hiring freeze that is being brought forward by the administration. This is a one reading resolution and would put up here. Would be intended to freeze in place through the end of the year until a position recall or position review can be done, and in an attempt to kind of balance out some of our personnel costs. I'll let the mayor speak on this for a minute. I think he has some things he'd like to say.
Absolutely. This is critical that we do this at this point in time. You know, this has been mentioned before. Our healthcare costs have become high. They seem to continue to increase for the city of Athens, which absolutely affects probably one of the larger drivers for this decision, because that revenue comes from our general fund, which is also where salaries come from in the city of Athens. And so this has been considered in the past. It's actually been used in the past. Several years ago, we ended up implementing a soft hiring freeze or a hiring freeze, with the caveat in there that any position that becomes vacated, the administration gives careful consideration as to how critical that position is to fill. So we still retain, the mayor's office will retain the authority to fill a position, but it is only after careful consideration as to the criticality of that position. I'll give you an example. That is not, it's only an example. This isn't going to happen, but just so you guys have an idea what that entails. If the operator of our wastewater treatment plant or our water treatment plant were of retirement age or whatever, took a job elsewhere and left that position, that's a position that absolutely has to be refilled. But there are other positions that could be vacated that are not critical positions, and we will hold that position, not fill it. It'll still be in the staffing ordinance, but in terms of hiring someone to go into that, even though we budgeted for it this year, We're just at that point to where we will not do that. Again, another reason why we have to really demonstrate the importance of a 0.2% income tax increase for the city of Athens.
Do we have any members of the public that would like to speak?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jackson Huxell, 366 Richland Avenue. You discussed how this is very important for the bigger jobs to be filled, but also like would this work for, you said 0.02% in the tax rates, correct? How does this go with parking fees, with other taxes that that the residents have to pay?
So there's a lot of, let me use your water bill, and we just discussed, another, the streetlight utility. There are a lot of funding streams that do come into the city, but they're called enterprise funds or proprietary funds. They can only be used for certain functions in the city of Athens. The general fund, though, which is where the income tax comes into, that all of our 100s, that is the money that goes to pay the salaries of all 190 plus full-time employees for the city of Athens, as well as your healthcare benefits, comes from that. So the parking meters in the parking garage is another great example of enterprise or proprietary funds. I cannot take money legally, and I never would, take that from there and go, I'm going to put this money into the general fund to make sure that I can keep all positions, positions that aren't 100% critical to the city of Athens, and keep that line or rehire someone into that position using that fund. So there's certain monies that I can't touch other than within certain disciplines within the city of Athens.
Aaron Thomas, Avon Place, Athens, Ohio. To be honest, I enjoy audit committee more than regular city council meeting because I just like the finance and personnel. And I've said this multiple times. My goal is to look at how can I stay in Athens when I retire? How can I survive in Athens? And I'm with the mayor on the 0.2%. I have looked at city jobs and seen jobs go unfilled. I have been here for council meetings, and you all have to pass emergency resolutions to move jobs up from a level 11 to level 12 because no one is applying for the job. And all this kind of comes into play of what I'll speak on the open discussion, but a lot of people that may want to apply for these jobs, they just can't afford to live in Athens. When your rent is $1,800 a month for a rental, not to buy a house, plus taxes, fees, and everything else come about, it's hard to attract talent to this area. So as I look at the hiring freeze, I think one thing I would suggest is that we need to look at, as a city as a whole, yes, the income tax is important, but we need to look at what can be changed, what can be added. Do parking fees go up? Do another fee go up here? Do recreation, something? But we have to watch how much tax we put on citizens in this town to keep this town running. So I understand the hiring freeze, and like I said, I look at the jobs that's open on the city and county website, and I see what they're paying, which I'm not knocking the pay, but when you look at what cost of rent costs in Athens and to live and to shop, our local grocery stores are 10% higher than Logan, Ohio and Jackson, Ohio. You can go to Jackson and shop and see the difference between the Walmart here and there. So we have to look at that as we look at a hiring freeze and how can we fix this problem overall. I'm kind of sad that my brother Josh, who's really not my brother, but Treasurer Thomas is not here because he's usually good with the numbers. But this is something that really need to be discussed more in depth as how do we get to this point with the rise in healthcare and everything else. But what's going to happen when somebody at my age want to retire here on a fixed income and I can't afford to park my car, shop, or pay water or the street light fee?
Anyone else from the public? Members of committee? Member Gladfelder.
I agree with the city's decision to do this. It's never a good thing when you have to implement a hiring freeze. And we do, as Mr. Thomas said, we do want to keep attracting talent. But to me, a hiring freeze is much better than actually cutting jobs. And that may be the kind of choice that the city is going to have to face. The budget really is tight. So I think implementing a hiring freeze here and, as soon as it would be passed in February or March is a really responsible move financially for the city to implement.
And just to clarify, because it's a one reading resolution, we'll be reading it tonight.
Oh, good.
So it would
Early
be an
February.
immediate, yeah. Any other comments from the committee? All right, moving on to the next one. This is an authorization for the auditor's office to reduce 2026 year-end appropriations. This usually is something that comes later in the year, usually after halfway, 3/4 of the year. They've asked this year to do it earlier. This is when the auditor's office goes through and they look at what we've appropriated into various funds and budget lines and determines whether there's enough revenue there to support those lines and whether we have enough carry forward from last year to cover all the costs in those funds and lines. By starting this earlier, they can look through it and begin making reductions and cuts where they need to while working with the administration to do this. Their plan would be to begin looking now, look through it again mid-year. If it's not on target, there would be another round of 2025 reductions, and then December of 2026 to even it all out. Mid-year and end-year reductions would be kept to keep the carryover up, as our carryover this year was not as high as it typically is, and that makes it challenging, if not impossible, to cover January expenses. Do I have any additional comments from the mayor's office? Anyone from the general public?
Mary Abel, Strathmore Boulevard. Tell me, Madam Chair, is it appropriate to ask questions now regarding this ordinance or during the regular meeting?
I think now would be best.
Okay. I read through this ordinance a couple of times, and I understand what you're saying. It basically that, as of right now, the city doesn't have sufficient funds coming in as to what council had appropriated. And one of the things in the ordinance it talks about is delivering reduced services to the public. And I wondered what services those might be. Does that include general fund? Does that also include those that are self-supporting departments within the city? And also, is there a list where it says anticipated receipts are not adequate? Is there a list at this time where those receipts aren't adequate, or is that something that's going to be brought forth later?
I believe that is what, go back to my notes here. The auditor's office would just begin looking through and determining where those would fall and would wait until later into the year to make any reductions, but they want to be able to start looking now and not have to go through the 8-week or, abbreviated, because we are going to ask to suspend this tonight so they can begin making cuts when they need to, as they see fit. I don't know exactly what they're going to want to cut, as they're going to wait and see as revenue comes in. It's just a general reminder that, the revenue comes in throughout the year, up and down. It doesn't come in like a large chunk at the beginning, as I know you are well versed in. That is really as best as I can cover or say for right now.
And then I wondered whether or not there has been a meeting between the county auditor and the budget commission that, does the certification of revenues of municipalities. Has that happened? Usually that happens around the first of the year, I think, under ORC, but.
The mayor seems to know.
So for certified resources, or certified revenue as it's coming
Right.
in, yeah, it usually happens during Q1 that comes into play. I do want to your first question about, whether there'll be a list of those that are being reduced. If the auditor is requesting a reduction, that yes, that can be produced. That's not an issue at all. What has typically happened, at least, in my 10 years, I've noticed it more and more in the past couple of years, and that is that going back through and reducing said year's budget in this process. I remember probably 2 years ago, we really started looking at it in November, and it's like, okay, any area where we know that there's been a reduction, that we need to reduce that year's unappropriated funds, or as we're looking into what our carryover is going to be. This year, the auditor and I sat down and really started looking at it in August and saying, we need to start doing this now. And so this is just what's being asked for by the auditor's office, is to have the time frame in which Acting President Thomas was saying, is that it's actually early, looking at it in the Q2, end of Q, and our quarters, by the way, this is for everyone else. We go by the calendar year. We're not under a fiscal year like the university or the states, which is, I believe, October to September or whatever. You would know. That was your world. Whatever it is. So thank you for giving me grace on that one. This is, I think, given where we're at right now, more fidelity as to what has to be reduced and where it gets reduced from looking forward in time. But I'm sure the auditor can have a list of what's being looked at. And I can say that it's largely going to be the general revenue. It's not going to be, when we look at our proprietary funds, they're actually doing well. They're doing okay. But as I indicated earlier, I can't take money that comes in from our trash revenue and say, okay, I'm gonna shift that over here. That's against the law. And some cities have done it. That's bad practice to do that. Or from our water, or from our sewer, because those are dedicated, as you know, those are dedicated to those. But I'll work with the auditor to make sure that there's something that, if we know that we have to reduce these, that council will be aware, and that we can work with the auditor to see if she can put together a list for any reduction.
And the public aware.
And the public, not just for you, but to you.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments? Members of the committee? Member Wood?
Yeah, I mean, we've done these basically every year in some way, shape, or form, either loosening or increasing. I guess I'm a little surprised on this one, just because we just went through the budget in December. So it seems very fast. And so was there some event or something that threw the projections off, as far as we know? What changed? I mean, again, not that long ago, to change our outlook so much.
If I may, some of it, again, I mentioned this earlier, is healthcare driven. Everyone's health, everyone in this room, everyone period, is healthy until they're not. And nobody can anticipate that, in terms of incidents that a human being experiences and when they experience it, at what time. And so some of it is literally driven by our medical budget for the city of Athens. That's one thing. It's probably one of the bigger drivers right now. So we're having to look at things much sooner than we have. In my 10 years, sooner than we've ever had to look at it, after we've come off of, just as you indicated, what our budget's going to be for the year.
Anyone else? Yeah, and I will add that the carryover from last year not being as high as typically they like around $1 million carryover, and I think we were at 670,000-ish. Definitely impacts, where we are right now, so looking ahead and trying to keep us stable for the rest of the year. All right, next up, we have some appropriations and interfund transfers. These are going to be in the same ordinance later tonight. This is the appropriations are some corrections or things that were not encumbered last year in the 2025 budget that needed to be encumbered. So we need to correct last year's appropriation budget. And then we'll be doing some transfers into the cemetery fund and into just moving some parking garage and water funds into those debt funds. Pretty standard things. If there's any, let's see, of the appropriations, we'll be moving $15,000 to the general fund, lands and buildings for a vehicle lease payment, $45,000 to the water fund, moving to the LEAX water agreement, and $10,000 to the sewer fund to cover payment for smart bill mailers and meter administration fees. And then further down on that same ordinance, we'll be moving money from the general fund to the cemetery fund, which is just keeping that up to where it needs to be. Parking garage fund to the parking garage debt fund, and water fund to the water treatment plant improvement fund. Do you have any questions or comments on that from the mayor's office?
No.
General public? Members of the committee? Moving on again. We'll have some then and now certificates coming that we will need to ask to suspend and pass tonight. These are pretty typical in January and then throughout the year. And we'll have a list of them in the ordinance that are generally January bills that come due before the budget is dropped. And that because they've already been paid, we have to approve them and go through this within the 30 days based on a state of Ohio process. And we can go through them more exact as we get to that in the later in the evening. But there's a big list of certificates and bills that just need to be paid and approved and appropriated tonight. Do you have any comments from the mayor's office?
No.
Anyone from the general public? And members of the committee? All right. The last one for the finance and personnel tonight is internet auction. And this is another standard January time of year ordinance where we just approve the ability for the city to sell things off in internet auctions for unneeded or obsolete municipal personal property. Any comments from the mayor's office on that? General public and members of the committee? All right, that ends the Finance and Personnel Committee, and we will move on to regular session now. All right. Everybody here? All right, I will call to order for regular session of council, February 2nd, 2026. First, the order of business is to establish quorum. All members of council are present. And we will need to move to approve the agenda.
Wait, not all members of council are present.
Oh. Yeah, member President McCary is not, I guess. Does he count?
No.
No, so he doesn't count as a
Well, it
voting
counts,
member.
but it
I mean, he can't, yeah. Taking shots at President
When
McCary.
he comes back, I can say I'm the one who said he can't.
There you go. We'll throw that on you. We need to move to approve the agenda, and I believe we need to amend the agenda.
No.
No?
We're already on.
Already on?
Okay, so move.
Second. Oh. Beat me to it.
Beat you to it. All right. Anyone have any communications or anything they need to share? Member Swank?
All members of council received an email today from a former city councilman member about a sidewalk hazard over on Morris Avenue and Wallace, which would be right near East Elementary. And I'll save the mayor weighing in on this, but he's certainly welcome to if he wants. We have a sidewalk ordinance here in the city of Ohio related to shoveling the snow. Now, granted, this was an unusual event in Athens. We had 5 inches of snow. We had 1.5 inches a layer of who knows what it was, and another 1.5 inches on top of that. We had a 3-layer cake. And today is the first time I saw 27 on my car thermometer in 10 days. So it's a mess. That said, it hasn't snowed in a while, although we're supposed to get 2 inches tomorrow. We need to shovel our sidewalks, and this is by an elementary school. I will say this, I took the liberty of calling the homeowner that lives out of town. It's a rental property, and unfortunately that number is no longer in order, Mayor, so we probably need to clean that up on the list of rental properties. But I just want to use this as an opportunity to relay what this former council member said is, folks, if you can, get out and shovel your walks. Particularly around places like schools that were heavily traveled. And it was a very well-written email, and it was very respectful, but just all members of council saw that, and just want to use this opportunity to pass it on to the general public.
Member Gladbetter?
Related to that same email, I think it's worth pointing out that I've seen a lot of people who have shoveled a narrow path on their sidewalks. And I know personally how hard it was to shovel this snow with that ice sandwich in the middle. It was the hardest snow I've ever had to shovel. But for our members of the community who use wheelchairs, those narrow paths down the sidewalk don't help them, right? They are still in the snow. So if you could please shovel your sidewalks and shovel them wide enough for someone in a wheelchair to pass, you'd be helping our community members.
Member Wood?
Yeah, I feel like everything changed in Athens in the space of a week. So I'm going to start with the nice thing. One, did you all know we have an Olympian? Yeah, Gwyneth Phillips is in the Olympics, the best goalie possibly in the world right now is from Athens, in my ward. Very excited. I've tried to get the mayor to rename a street. Public pressure.
Gold medal will do that.
The gold, yes. So yeah, watch Gwyneth Phillips. She's incredible. I was a goalie in college, so I'm very biased, but yeah, she's amazing. If anybody knows where I can get a jersey, let me know. That's been something that is exciting and needs to be celebrated. Also have heard a lot of kudos for the fire folks. And Chief Reimer was particularly called out the number of other people. Just want to acknowledge that we've heard a lot about the water pipes. I know the mayor is on that. I know that Andy Stone has communicated with those folks, but just want to acknowledge those folks that are going through a lot of tough frozen pipes and things. That's tough. It's a difficult time. My own car obviously was frozen today, and my own shop sink is broken and had to deal with that. So I have a lot of empathy, and I know the mayor and the administration do as well. Just want to acknowledge that we've all seen that. Finally, I did want to ask something that I have gotten messages from, including from members of the Wiley family. In that section of East State, there's a number of spots that have been plowed in. The parking spots have been plowed in. They're covered. In that segment, 6 out of 12 are inaccessible. And I heard from one store manager that this weekend somebody actually got stuck. The city folks pulled them out and then put the snow back into the parking spot. And just hopeful. I'm saving you time. Trying to. So yeah, I was wondering if there's plans to in acknowledgement of those emails I've gotten about the maybe replowing, helping those parking spots, is there any plan to do that? Anything we can do to help clear those spots?
So is that a question of me?
Yeah. Sorry, that was a long monologue.
There can be, as long as there's not a vehicle sitting there. We don't have the ability to, we're not like a Pittsburgh or other places that actually have signage saying that during snow events, your vehicle can be towed and pulled out of there so that a snowplow can go through.
You know who leaves their cars there? It's the students that live above.
Thank you, Sally Jo. When we knew that Snowmageddon was coming, if council recalls, that I'm on record as telling everyone, if you have the ability to get off of the street and park elsewhere, whether it's a parking lot, whether it's a driveway, whether it's in your own garage, whatever, do so. So that that the city's snow crews can get out there and effectively plow everything. That unfortunately, and I agree with you, in a lot of cases, I'm not going to say who it was, but in a lot of cases, individuals chose otherwise. And again, we can't effectively get all the snow off of the streets when there are vehicles parked in them. And I know that that's not the case everywhere, that there are, Hamlin, I can name a number of streets to where there isn't off-street parking. It's only on-street parking. But, it helps for us to be able to get our jobs effectively done with snow removal. We actually even contracted this year, which we've not done before, to have a third party come in with dump trucks. I don't know if anybody noticed this, but dump trucks and front loaders to come in and remove what they could remove, where we had to create big piles. But I'm with you. I mean, trust me, I've driven around and I've seen where vehicles have been sat, either sitting there, or even in cases where you've got vehicle and then maybe a stretch of 20 feet and then another vehicle. Well, I would encourage anybody, as long as we have liability protection on this, to do a ride along with our snow crews, because those trucks are big, and for them to sit there and try and navigate along and clear snow, and then there's a 20-foot stretch of open against the curb, they can't swerve in and get them. I mean, it's.
I was there actually when the crew was there, and he says, "Oh,
Sally Jo.
I'm only doing two."
We can't really allow public input during this time, and you have to be at the podium. Sorry. Anyway, but yeah, it's a fair point. Any other communications from elected officials or from members of council? Yeah. Member Isherwood.
Yeah. So I want to go for what Member Wood said about the water main breaks, and I know that the city's looking into those issues and trying to figure out solutions. And I'd say I know if that's not the answer, then necessarily the folks who suffered flooded basements and all that from that want to hear. But I think we talked about this a few weeks ago. There's solutions being worked on and plans being made and discussions, and that will happen over time. I want to say that one of these main breaks happened on the street that I live on, and I just want to commend, and I hope he passes on, Mayor Patterson, the crews, the work that they did in freezing temperatures at night with water gushing. I wouldn't want that job, but I can tell you they worked, and I talked with City Safety Service Director Stone. He said to me, they work until the situation's fixed. And I think, this was, late at night, freezing cold temperatures. It was really commendable and amazing. They had that on one of the streets. They had the water flowing again by the end of the evening, and they worked with a smile on their face. They were polite to everybody. Just really commendable. I thought it was really admirable. And when we think about where our tax dollars go, and I totally understand everything that's been said tonight about it being a challenging time and rising costs, we really have some remarkable people working for the city, and I think that's really impressive. And then I also want to add on On my round of tours of city facilities, last week I was very lucky to also to go to the water treatment plant. I got a right this week. And I want to commend Steve Adams, the plant manager there, gave me a tour. Again, much like the wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plant smells a lot nicer. It's down off West 8th Street. You probably, if you've driven past it, if you've been down at the ball fields down there, you may even not even notice this facility. This is a remarkable facility for our city. The work that the staff do there, I mean, it's just incredible. The scale of what you drive past that building, you only get a small glimpse of the scale of what they do, and the fresh water that we are provided in our city. It really is remarkable. And I want to commend the team that you have there. Really, really outstanding. And if you have the opportunity to tour it, I highly recommend you doing it. And that's all from me.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right. Communications from the mayor. Oh. Oh, I'm sorry. The law director. You're sitting right here.
Yeah. She moved.
I do have two communications for council tonight and for the public. FYI, there's snow in the forecast for the next couple days, and there's snow in the forecast for Friday. The only reason I'm bringing this up, because this isn't, any mystery to anybody who's tracking the weather these days. The city is currently, when it comes to our road salt, we're at a point where we're running extremely low on salt, on road salt. We have reached out to DOT and ODOT District 10 and to see if we couldn't get some reserve from them, and the answer was no. They too are running extremely low. I then asked our street department to reach out, our engineering and public works to reach out to the county engineer, Jeff Maiden, to see if they had salt that they had in reserves, and the answer was they are almost out of salt as well. We do have an order that's in, so we're waiting for that salt to come in. The only reason I'm sharing all this is I want everyone from today moving forward, when you're driving around the city of Athens, please, please, please be extremely careful as you're driving. We will continue to plow where plowing needs to take place, as if snow accumulation is present on the ground. But with that plowing, typically they are spreading salt as well. With what we have until we do get our shipment of salt in, our plan is to hit the steep streets and to make sure that intersections are being effectively salted moving forward in time. But, this is basically a statewide issue. I'm not going to call it a crisis yet, but a statewide issue. So I want to just get that out there. And Councilor Isherwood, I'm glad you recognize the water line breaks. This is good for the public to understand too. And that is that over the course of the past week, we've had over 10 water line breaks in the city of Athens, and one of them was significant. It's on Columbus Road. Columbus Road, just as a public service announcement, for us to effectively repair that. I mean, it's repaired for right now, but for us to really get in and assess the full extent of what needs to take place, we will likely have to divert some traffic on Columbus Road because it's a difficult space. We're talking the intersection of Columbus Road and North Lancaster that comes behind, for those of you who know where this place is, the former State Highway Patrol barracks or building that's down there near the Ohio Valley Museum of Discovery, near where the old fire station headquarters building is. So we've got some work to do. But as was indicated, our water crews, when there's a water line break, and this holds true on the sewer side too, they don't leave until that is fixed. So they're in the ground in these really incredibly difficult, challenging weather conditions that they are experiencing, and getting the job done so that so that everyone can get the water that they need. But I just do want to get that out about our salt, so that council is aware and that the viewing population is aware. And no, we cannot be taking water softening salt and use it, because that's That would be very expensive salt to be putting down that's not used for something like that. It's road salt.
All right. Anything else? All right, we'll now move on to ordinances for second reading. I'll read the title of each, and if there are any updates or changes, the member can let me know. Otherwise, we'll just read through those. Ordinance 0126, an ordinance granting a special right-of-way use permit at 35 Elliott Street to place an in-ground sign in front of the building in the city's right-of-way.
Good to go.
Ordinance 0226, an ordinance authorizing the annual purchase of water softening salt for the water treatment plant.
Good to go.
All right. Ordinance 0326, an ordinance amending the 2026 appropriation ordinance 12025 and authorizing interfund transfers. Nothing there. We'll now move on to ordinances for first reading. The first of these will be an ordinance authorizing the auditor to reduce 2026 year-end appropriations, introduced by myself, Finance and Personnel Committee. And we are going to ask to suspend this. So first, can I get a motion to suspend?
So moved.
Can I have a second? Thank you. This ordinance is Section 1, the auditor is hereby authorized to reduce the 2026 appropriations where anticipated receipts are not adequate and when combined with the carry forward balance, not sufficient to approve the full appropriation of funds. The auditor shall coordinate reductions with the administration in advance to facilitate proper planning for delivering reduced services to the public. Do I have any questions from the members of council? Member Swank?
The motion on the floor is to suspend the rules.
Oh, I'm sorry, we didn't vote. Did
Yeah,
we?
but I have a question about that. The motion on the floor is to suspend the rules. As Member Wood so correctly pointed out, we normally do this much later in the year. And I think the question I was going to ask her too, what has changed in the last 6 weeks on the budget that we approved? And what is the hurry? What is the hurry of letting this go through the 3 reading process? This is a rather large, this may be routine on the surface, but this is a rather large request in view of the fact that less than 7 weeks ago, we approved a budget. Mm-hmm. And supposedly a lot of time and effort went into the preparation of that budget. And the message that I'm getting now is, maybe that budget wasn't so solid. So I don't see any need whatsoever to suspend the rules and allow this to go through the regular 3 reading process so we can have additional time to discuss and research it, particularly since the auditor's not here today. And I think with a request of this magnitude, there are many questions that I have, and I don't think it's fair for me to ask the mayor because this is an auditor budget question. Therefore, I will not be able to vote to suspend the rules this evening.
Anyone else have any questions? I can say that the auditor and the deputy auditor both requested this. When they did the budget, that would have been earlier, starts in November, goes through, but as December comes, bills come due. We had the large tax refund that came through. It was not it's out of our control, and it was not anticipated. I don't think it means that they're going to start immediately reducing and making cuts, but they just want to be able to begin preparing to do that and looking ahead to do that so that they have to, they're just ready to go. Yeah. If we're waiting for the auditor to come, it'd be 2 more weeks. So that would be where we would be with this.
Nope.
Any other discussion? Member Wood?
I do have I think what I heard was, and could be wrong, that are we authorizing specific cuts at this point? Are we authorizing looking at cuts? Because we did say that we maybe have a list of things that are on the block. Yeah, I guess that would be my question there. Is it a full-on, yeah, fine, go ahead and make cuts, or is it we're going to authorize the looking at making cuts?
It's my understanding that council does not have the authority to make specific line item cuts, that is the job of the auditor's office, and that they will go through and determine what the revenues they predict and what the revenues are turning out to be, where those are, and whether they're going to match up with the expenses that were planned. Yeah.
While we do not have the authority to make line item cuts, we do have the authority to make categorical modifications. As an example, if a department had 10 items in it and it was $1 million, and we thought $1 million was too much and wanted to reduce that to $900,000, we could do that. They would just have to figure out how to address the 10 items with $900,000. But again, the motion on the floor is the necessity of suspending the rules, and not the discussion we're having now will come later, depending on the outcome of that vote. And again, I do not feel at this point in time, when we traditionally don't do this till later in the year, and the reason given in the latter of the year is that we don't spend more than was appropriated. That has been the reason given all 4 years I've been on council. And this is a radical change. And as I said, what has changed in the last 7 weeks?
Member Hollfeder?
Well, it seems to me that the auditor has conveyed that, I don't know about specifically in the last 7 weeks, but that the city budget really is in pretty dire straits between the health benefit costs that shot up and were just shockingly high, and that unexpected tax reimbursement that came due in December unexpectedly for a very large amount of money. And those two things together probably did change the budget landscape. And I think that if they're going to have to reduce the allocations and lower the budget for particular items, that the sooner they start looking at that, the better. That's how that works in my life, at least. If I wait too long, and then often it's not possible to save enough money.
Member Swank?
Those health care bills have been paid. If you remember, we reappropriated from various departments to cover those. That was 2025. We're talking about 2026. Again, the motion on the floor is whether or not there is a need to suspend the rules to continue this with the discussion tonight, or this first reading in tonight, and we pick it up at second reading and third. And my contention is I don't see the urgency, the need to suspend the rules tonight and to pass this.
If we didn't suspend the rules tonight, and at our next meeting, the auditor was here and was able to say this is a really critical thing to be able to do, could we go and suspend the rules at that point?
Yes,
and then
sir.
pass it at that point?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that would be in 2 weeks.
Yep.
So that would be
17th.
17. Yeah.
So do we have a sense that if we don't suspend the rules tonight, that it will be, like Member Kloffelter suggested, cause even increased economic issues for the city? Do we don't?
I mean, I can't 100% speak to that.
Sure.
Yeah, I can assume that just the sooner they can start looking and projecting, the better, but yeah, I don't know for sure, like, how much impact 2 weeks will have. Do we, Member or Mayor?
Member Mayor.
Member Mayor.
It's been 10 years.
New possession.
I've done both.
You're fine.
Whatever council decides to do, one thing I think is important in this conversation is the fact that the auditor's office had to pay out a $750,000 refund that a business in the city of Athens, which is they're entitled to, that they enacted that or acted upon that. The way in which for other bills that go through the auditor's office to be able to legally pay some of those bills, given that unexpected, and I have to put an exclamation mark on that, an unexpected refund of $750,000. The only way they can legally do that, if there's not revenue in their, whatever that line item to pay that, given that they had to use $750,000 to do that in reserves, that they're gonna have to come to council, and I understand what council is saying. It could mean that we call for an emergency regular session next Monday night to get this done, if it's that critical, one way or the other. I know that's not popular, but we're having 2 meetings tonight where we had committee and then we rolled right into a regular session. But it is unfortunate that the auditor is not here tonight. I'm not going to speak for the auditor in terms of all the reasons, but I do know that one of the reasons is an unexpected refund request and payout of $750,000.
Member Wood and then Member Smith.
Yeah, I feel like in general, we're likely going to check off the thing. I don't think there's a way we avoid checking off the thing at some point. I think the thing that has me pumping the brakes at this point would be, I'd like to have some idea of what we're cutting if we're not going to get a second look at it. And that's okay. Like, I get that, you know, again, I think council will go with it in the end, because I think obviously the administration will come to good choices and such not. The number of times I've joined Alan on dissent, I think, are zero.
It's a new year.
Yeah, not getting hasty, but we can do it once. but yeah. I guess I was pretty on board, except for just not knowing what's going to happen with it. I think that's I think we will do it. Obviously, I think we have to. I think I would just like to know more, and I don't doubt the veracity or validity of the claims. You know, obviously, yeah, the big $250,000 coming in, or the 750,000 or whatever it was. Those things make sense. Those happen. Yeah.
Before we joke, just one last thing. The $750,000 is in the 2026 budget that we have approved. The revenue in our budget for 2026, which we approved in December, includes covering that $750,000. The budget was balanced. It's accounted for.
I'm going to let Member Stazer go and then maybe try to answer that.
Sorry, I'll be quick. For me too, I wish I had more information, you know, before I voted to do this. I do wish that the auditor would have been able to come here tonight and talk about this a little bit more. I'm just not exactly sure what we're suspending for them to do.
That's fair. So, it feels like, should we just withdraw the move to suspend, or should we vote and then move on that way? All right, can we take a vote on motion to suspend? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All against, or nay?
Nay.
2. All right. I think the difference with the, just to get back to the, it's microphone. We're testing new microphones tonight. With the tax refund being in the budget, if an increase in medical bills came in at the end that was not expected, and the funds that we need to pay all of those are not present this early in the year. So it's probably a timing thing, but I can convey all that to the auditor too, and then prep her for what questions are out there. Oh, yeah, Member Wood.
If it was needed, that we needed an emergency session, I think council would be, that wouldn't be an issue. That may be a better way to proceed than we have the auditor to talk to us about that information before we do that, rather than just suspending the rules and then.
Yeah, I think that's a fair plan. All right, we will have that read consider that read for the first time then.
The mayor wants to talk.
Oh, Mr. Mayor.
I will work with the auditor to expedite all this, to get the information that council is asking for, as well as getting it out to the public, to where they're aware as well. And once this week, as we're working on that, once we get the answer as to, you know, as Councilmember Swank, you indicated that we did budget for that, $750,000, but it could just be that some money has to be moved around internally to where everything else is safe, but it can't be legally done without council authorizing this request. So given that I've just said that to everybody, I will get to work hard tomorrow and the next day to find out and get that information to council, and then likely call for a special session next Monday night to be able to move this forward so that legally money is coming from where it needs to come from, where it can come from.
Thank you.
If I could say something. And I certainly respect that. The two things. Number one, there is nothing that prevents the auditor's office from looking at this right now. There's nothing that prevents the auditor's office from looking at this, every penny, nickel, and dime right now. What this ordinance does, it authorizes the auditor to actually do something to make a reduction. So they can begin looking at this right now. There's no problem with that. Second thing is, and I'm only one person, but because of my NOPEC, serving on the NOPEC board, I will be out of the state next Sunday through Friday for a meeting. And I say that in this context. That leaves us with 6 council members. If we had a special session next week and moved to suspend the rules, one person can stop that. So I would encourage council to let's stick with our regular session of council 2 weeks from tomorrow night to do this when we're all in attendance, and it would take more than one person voting no to stop the process. Something to think about.
Anyone else? Moving on to ordinance 05-26. This is an ordinance amending the 2026 appropriation ordinance 120-25 and authorizing the auditor to make interfund transfers. I read through some of this earlier with the $15,000 to the general fund for vehicle lease, $45,000 to the water fund for the LEAX agreement, and $10,000 to the sewer fund for smart bill mailers. And then the interfund transfers from the general fund to the cemetery fund in the amount of $73,000, from the parking garage fund to the parking garage debt fund in the total of $160,000, and water fund to the water treatment plant improvement fund for $400,000. Do you have any comments or questions? Member Gladfelder?
I am curious, Mr. Mayor, if you would be willing to comment on this, why such a large transfer of money of $73,000 is necessary for the cemetery fund in early February?
I don't know 100% sure. I'm not going to say something that's completely inaccurate on the cemetery fund for that transfer. I will find out for you. Some of that may be for the mausoleum in West Union Cemetery, but I don't know for sure. So I will get that information for you.
Thank you.
Yep.
I spoke to the deputy auditor today for a little bit, and the general fund move to the cemetery was to increase the fund balance to cover the full year, and that just occasionally has to be re-upped. We moved it, I don't know, a few years ago out of bulk general fund into its own fund line, so now we just see it more often, but was a standard practice that we'd done for years. It just wasn't pulled out in its own fund, so we didn't see it. But I can get more details on that also.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Moving on to the next ordinance, 06-26, an ordinance approving then and now certificates for payment and declaring an emergency. This is another one that is asked to be suspended, and this is due to the change in ORC rules a few years ago, dictating that these things need to be paid within 30 days of receipt. And the following then and now certificates for payment are AEP in the amount of $3,005.62, Columbia Gas in the amount of $3,852.91. Everbridge in the amount of $6,365.40. Enterprise in the amount of $30,412.28. Go to IT in the amount of $14,865. Granicus in the amount of $18,669.66 for web streaming. ID Networks in the amount of $6,894. PEP in the amount of $5,000 as a deductible, and Rumpke in the amount of $3,443.
I'd move we suspend the rules on 0626.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. All right, any members of council have any questions on the then and nows? All right, can I get a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Moving on to ordinance 07-26. An ordinance authorizing unneeded or obsolete municipal personal property to be sold by internet auction. We discussed this earlier in committee, and this is just as things are unnecessary and unable to be used, they can bid these out at internet auction and bring some money back in for these items. Do you have any questions on this one? All right, but we will consider that read for the first time. All right. Ordinance 08-26, introduced by Member Isherwood. An ordinance adopting the Athens County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan for the City of Athens.
Yeah, so this is, as we mentioned in committee earlier, this is a requirement of the city per the Disaster Mitigation Act of 2000. I don't need to read, do I need to read though? No. This is something we have to do. It's something that it works in favor of the city. And yeah, if anyone has any questions.
Do we have a required deadline that we have to have this passed by?
That is information I was not given.
No.
There is none. Yeah, and there was no need to suspend rules or anything for this. So.
Yeah. Any other questions? All right, we will consider that read for the first time. Last, we have Resolution 03-26, a resolution requesting all elected officials institute a hiring freeze for all full-time positions until a position review has taken place. Whereas to prevent our general fund balance from dropping below our cash balance policy minimum and to ensure the medical fund maintains the necessary cash on hand to meet all obligations, vacant positions should be carefully reviewed prior to filling in order to alleviate any need for a reduction in force, while at the same time recognizing that some vacant positions will, by necessity, be advertised and filled. City Council hereby requests all elected officials institute a hiring freeze for full-time positions until a position review has taken place. This policy shall remain in effect until December 31st, 2026. That is a one-time reading resolution. And can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry. Discussion.
Yeah. A couple things, really, several things. This is a request. This has no power. It just asks that the mayor, the law director, the auditor, and the treasurer institute a hiring freeze. They don't have to do it. And the president of council, yes. Does he hire you, Debbie? But they don't have to do it. And I'm wondering, is this just, and maybe the law director can help us with this, is this just a typical verbiage, or are we potentially passing something that has no teeth to it?
It's a resolution, and anytime you pass a resolution, it's an opinion, basically, of council.
So a resolution itself doesn't have any teeth in it, is what you're saying?
True.
Okay, that's fine. So here are my real questions. It references our current, or our cash balance. Do we have any idea what our current cash balance percentage is? 'Cause I know we have a range.
Policy.
But do we have any idea what it is?
I do not know that I know what it is offhand. I did ask that in the finance meeting last week, and I believe we were above the 7.5%, but they just want to maintain that, obviously, and make sure that we are
Okay.
staying there.
All right. Second question, how much do we have on hand in the medical fund? Because this references the medical fund. Did that come up in that meeting?
I don't recall if that did, and we just got the latest finance emails, which would have the end of the year. I'd have to pull that up and see.
Okay. I think this is a very prudent matter. I really do. And I think the people who know best would be the elected officials in each of those 5 areas that we talked about. But Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this. If somebody were to leave, a position becomes vacant. At that point in time, in the administration, under your purview, you would then conduct some kind of a position review, probably with Director Stone, maybe the HR director, to see if it's warranted. And you don't have to share this with us, but I would assume that you prioritize certain positions in terms of their position with the city. To me, public health and safety would be at the top of the list. Our fire and police can't operate with them. But let's say at the same time, the auditor's office has a position open. Do you cross-reference that we have to get rid of one of these, not fill one of these and not the other, or is it totally your department and that department?
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great question because it gives me the opportunity to speak about this, because this has come up before about administration, just labeling administration versus legislative versus the law director's office. The auditor's office and the office of the mayor, those are administrative functions. Auditor is a separate elected official. We all recognize that, with her own employees that work there as well. That is completely within her purview. I would never sit there and say, hey, city auditor, I think you should not fill this position. That is her responsibility and her responsibility only. I would not do that with the law director. That's the law director's, it's her area, the law director, or their area, and has the ability to do self-manage in that way. The same with the city, and you're correct. It would be myself, it would be Director Stone, and it would be the HR director, Ron Lucas, that we look at every position. If it becomes vacated for whatever reason, then we assess it. We do have basically a kind of a go, no-go approach in which we look at these things to where, are there multiple people in this pay band within said job, and can we make do with a person less in there that may have retired or whatever? And so therefore, that's what we look at. But again, I mentioned critical, like if we lost our director for IT, we have one person. I'm going to replace that person if we were to, and that's not going to happen. Could he be scooped away by somebody? I hope not. To your point about safety, yes, that's a critical. There's a lot of critical components, but you mentioned it. You may recall that we did hire 3 new firefighters under a grant provision that we had that was a 3-year grant. And, with that grant, having been fulfilled in terms of the revenue coming in, if there were a person who left that position or there was a retirement and people move up, it's a whole different process in which people can move up or whatever, we would look at those positions too. We're looking at all positions in the city of Athens when it comes to what we're moving forward with. And to go through this with one reason resolution, you're right. I mean, there's no teeth to this. This is really letting the public know that we are looking closely at the employees for the city of Athens. We are. We're looking at them closely in arts, parks, and recreation. We're looking at them closely within lands and buildings. We're looking at them closely, within our street department, we're looking at them closely within engineering and public works. We're looking at them closely everywhere. And so, and trust me, this is not an easy thing to have to go through. It is not. The only thing that is worse is if it got worse and there was a different approach that the city had to take. We're not there at all. But this is letting the population of Athens know, and those who work in the city, because this affects those who work in the city as well and may not live in the city of Athens, that we're looking very closely at all the functions in the city and in terms of, you know, whether there's a vacancy, whether at this point in time that we can succeed minus a person in said category. And I'll just leave it there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Member Rachel?
Yeah, so just a question, a couple of questions. One is, in order for there to be a hiring freeze, you don't actually need city council to do anything. You could just instigate, I'm not hiring anyone.
I can.
Yeah. Then the other question I have is, I was just looking at the website for the positions posted right now. Would that mean those are no longer, you would no longer fill any of those?
I have not seen the current posting, and you don't need to recite it to me.
This is me looking forward to warmer days. Mostly it's lifeguards at the pool.
That's a different category, and I'm glad you brought that up. I was purposeful in not talking about part-time seasonal. Those individuals are needed to run the pool. We don't pay health care for part-time seasonal employees who work for the city of Athens, and their pay band for part-time seasonal is nothing in comparison to all of our full-time employees who receive full benefits. Those are the ones we're looking at. So to allay anybody who might be worried about us hiring lifeguards for the city's pool, we are hiring lifeguards for the city pool because the city pool can be open. Is there someone who may have a function within that department that we have duplication, and we know that someone has, again, retired, or they've gotten a job, they got scooped by Columbus or by somebody else? Goodness forbid they went to Marietta, but you know, or somewhere else local. It's like, no. You know, we'll have that vacancy, and we know, well, we have other people who actually also do that function. It's great to have more because of demand, but if we have to go with one less, then that's what we'll do in that position. But no, part-time seasonal, yeah, that's not what we're talking about.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we have a motion and we have a second already?
You do.
All right, can we, all those in favor of passing resolution 03-26?
Aye.
Aye.
All those against? All right, resolution is adopted. All right, we'll move on to announcements and other business. Just real quickly, I have just the announcement that the Community Relations Commission has 2 open positions, and they are encouraging the public to apply online for those at this time. Did anyone else have any announcements or other business? Member Cloudflare?
Similarly, the Athens Municipal Arts Commission is going to be having 2 openings coming up. One for someone who lives within the city limits of Athens, and one for someone who lives not in the city limits, but in the county of Athens.
Anyone else? Member Swain?
Yes, we have a communication we forgot to do. It's another liquor permit transfer. This is an easy one, at least in my opinion it is. The liquor transfer of a C1 and a C2 permit from the Village Bakery to 4 West Stimson Avenue, which is Bobcat Bicycle Shop. Now, before anybody, I saw Beth's face, before anybody worries if the bicycle shop's going out of business, they are not. What they're going to do is the front 50-60% of the shop is going to be a wine shop which they currently have at the Village Bakery, and the back half will remain the bicycle shop. So if you have flat tires, your things are out of whack, there's still a good place in town to get it fixed. They will not be closed off. One will bleed, I don't know if that's the right word. One will open into the other. So picking up on Paul's thing about when warmer time comes, stop by, get the bottle of wine, and
Get your bike fixed.
get your bike fixed. Simple transfer, C1, C2, from Village Bakery to where the the front of the Bobcat bicycle. So I would ask members of council, do any of you feel we need to have a hearing on this or a comment?
I have a
Yes, ma'am.
question, please. The Village Bakery, I believe, is owned by Christine Hughes and Bob Sheets.
They sold it to the folks that own Little Fish.
Okay.
Yeah.
To who will be owning the new site of the wine shop combined with the bike shop?
The front will be Christine Hughes.
Okay.
Yeah, she's basically just moving her operation.
Her own liquor
yeah,
license.
Yeah, lock,
from
stock, and barrel bottle in this case over to West Stimson.
Okay.
On a bike.
On a bike. Yeah. Yeah. So any need for a hearing?
I don't think.
No.
Any comment? Okay, we're good. Thank you. Sorry that we
Mayor.
Mayor.
Oh,
This is interesting. I am 100% familiar with a D1 through D5 liquor permit. And I know what those are. Those are on-premises wine, beer, wine, spirits.
This is just carry out only.
Carry out only, thank
Yes,
you.
sir.
I was Googling, using the Google machine and trying to get at it really quick, and I saw something, but it was for Pennsylvania. And so, thank you for that.
Okay.
So it's carry out only. That's
Yes, sir.
important to note. There's no drinking on premises, although the one location I was listening, but I was Googling too, is that it's interesting because that also resides within our DORA.
Yes.
No bike required though, right?
No bike. Tricycles accepted.
A bicycle under Ohio Revised Code is a vehicle.
good note.
Let's say that here. Just.
All right, we'll move on to opportunity for citizens to speak on legislative items and city services not covered on the agenda. Anyone wishing to speak will have 3 minutes and would need to give their name and address at the podium.
Oh boy, here we go. We got 3 people.
We got a list.
Mary Angel Strathmore. I'm going to bring up something that Member Wood talked about earlier. The Winter Olympics will start here in a few days, and I had thought about this last week, being that Gwyneth Phillips from Athens is a member of that U.S. women's ice hockey team. Now, you might not know that Gwyneth really learned to skate and play ice hockey down at Bird Arena. And she has done exceptionally well in her career, elementary, high school, college, career, and beyond. And we have never had an Olympian from Athens, Ohio, as far as I'm aware. And I thought it might be really nice if council could consider some kind of acknowledgement to her, whether that be a proclamation, giving a day that is devoted to her from whoever does that, mayor or council, a street banner, whatever. I think it would also be nice to recognize her and invite her here at a future date. I know nothing about ice hockey, but I'm telling you, I watched on YouTube. She is an amazing team player and goalie. So even if you don't know anything about it, it's just amazing to watch her. And Member Wood, I'm probably overstepping my bounds here, but if you really wanted to name a street in her honor as a legislative body, I think you might be able to do that.
Before you go.
Thank you.
Before you go. Oh, I know we're not supposed to do this, but for the mayor, tell him that I didn't tell you all of this ahead of time.
No, actually, he didn't tell me all of this because I was thinking about this because what you might not know is her dad served on city council for a number of years, and he was also president of city council. So there's been a long relationship here of the Phillips family in service to Athens and being involved. And I just think that it's such an amazing thing to have someone from Athens recognized in this manner. And I was hoping that council could do something and or the mayor. Thank you.
I say that because I sent all of those exact things you said to the mayor 3 months ago. Those exact words, everything you said, so thank you.
Her first game is the 5th at 10:40 a.m.
10:40 a.m.
Yeah, I don't know if
Peacock.
that's, I don't know if that's Eastern time or Italian time. It's,
So, the reason, I'm Sally Jo Wiley, and I live out in Albany, but the reason I'm here is because of the street in front of the sidebar. And I was there when the gentleman in the small backhoe was there. And he told me before he even started, oh, I'm only doing the first two. That was his comment, and he pushed those first two right into the one behind it and made a huge pile, and he didn't clean any others. And he didn't do any on the opposite side of the street. Also, I noticed today when I drove around town, all those piles that were around on Court and Union, and from the stoplight up past Casa and Tony's, have no piles in the street. Only in front of the sidebar are there piles. So I wondered why that was, why no one came along and took away those piles, which I saw a dump truck early last week when I came in on Union picking up snow and taking it away. The other thing is that there's not a delivery zone in that area, and I know it's difficult when deliveries are made there because of the parking meters and oftentimes all the parking spaces are taken up by the students that live above, and they don't care whether they get tickets or not. They just leave them there, and I've never seen one booted or taken away. And I just wondered why that was. There are Passion Works, which have two nice spots right out front, which is nice. But all the rest of the businesses, which is several small businesses that tried very hard to make it, and they have no parking in front of them. And it's always, when the students are here, it's almost always full of student cars that live up above. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Aaron Thomas. I was trying to recruit some more people to come up and speak before me. But I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I continue to come up here at least once a month to talk about just taxes in Athens and just trying to survive here in Athens County. So some of the people who really don't know who I am, I have owned a business in Athens, a storefront, for 20 years. So when the business on Union was going through that construction, when I first opened my store up was in 2002, 2003, when they first widened East State Street. So I went through that whole construction process. I survived a housing collapse from 2007 to 2010 as a small business owner, and at the time, the second poorest county in the entire state of Ohio. And then I made it through a pandemic with a university closure, jobs lost, and more. And the one thing I want to ask us for this new council is some transparency moving forward. We're pushing things on emergency agendas and emergency passage, but we need some transparencies. The first attempt for the point tax hike failed on the ballot a year ago, and if more transparency is not delivered, the point two is going to fail. I mean, the city really need to know why we need this income tax, where is it going, and what's going to happen if we do not pass this. You know, a lot of things depend on what the city bring in. So that's fire, that's police, that's maintenance, and more. And we can't continue to have these discussions and the people who need to be in this room is not in this room to give us some transparencies. I said earlier, I enjoy listening to the audit committees because I like the breakdown on where this spending is going. But as a resident of Athens, if it's no transparency on how this money is going to get spent, I can't vote for a 0.2% income tax. I mean, I bring up every month about what property tax costs in Athens. And for people who don't understand, our property taxes is the same as New Albany and Westerville. I looked it up. You can look it up too. Go on Zillow, look for a house compared to Athens. You'll see what the property tax costs. The median income is under $50,000. According to the last census, it was $38,000 in this area. So if you're spending $5,000 to $6,000 for your property taxes on a fixed income, how do you make up that money? For the students in here, when you wonder why your rent is $1,800 a month, the house you live in property taxes is probably $9,000 a year. So keep these in mind when you all are voting in November. The levies are for the county, but it affects the city. It affects everybody else. But I'm asking for us, the city is more transparency. I hate coming up here and saying this. I value everybody's here, but I'm looking at my neighbors. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to be here in Athens when I turn 60. So thank you all for the time, and happy birthday to Mayor Patterson.
Oh.
What?
Again and again and again.
Just as a point, just to clarify, because we have that a lot for Mr. and I know Mr. Thomas quite well. Property taxes are from the county and dictated by the state. The city does not have any input or control, and we get less than 3% of property taxes. So go on up to the state house, please. We would all love to see it. Fix that school funding. What do you need to know about the Trex?
The Trex permit.
Are you not gonna do anything on the Trex permit tonight?
Oh, you know what? We should, okay, so here's what we can do by Robert's Rules of Order. I can make an amendment to amend the agenda because we did not amend the agenda at the amend the agenda spot. It would take a 2/3 majority of council to amend it and act on it at this point in time. So I will.
This could just be other business.
It still takes 2/3. Yeah. I mean, we're adding it to the agenda once the agenda was approved. Well, that's true. That is true. But we can't go back and do that. So I would move that we amend the agenda to act upon the Trex permit.
Is that fair to do? Or is there a reason, can we do it next week?
Oh, yeah.
Can we
yeah, we could do it at the next business meeting, which is the 17th. Yeah.
Yeah. Then we don't have to go through.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mr. Mayor.
That was gonna be my suggestion. There's no rush to get a Trex.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Let's do it
Okay,
at the
let's do it then.
17th, the next business meeting. Yeah.
All right.
That's fine.
That's tidier. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn then? Second?
Second.
All right.
Second.
I think I only got one. All right.